Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to my talk. I am Shazia Kasuji, and what I will be covering today is the five lessons learned from startup product management. Before I start on those lessons, here's a little bit about me. I've been in the IT industry since 2002, so 18 years plus, and I've worked in multiple domains in that time, ranging from utilities, pharmaceuticals, clinical research, distribution, warehousing, retail, banking, oil and gas. And while I worked in those domains, I have been wearing multiple hats, sometimes business analyst, sometimes project manager, delivery manager, program manager, product owner, or product manager. I've led and launched new and disruptive products, sometimes in a traditional established company, exploring new ideas, and sometimes in a fresh startup. I appreciate there's a lot of material, books, articles, blogs, and opinions out there on lean product management, lean startup, and launching new and disruptive products. This is my attempt to add to that community and those opinions and share some of the key lessons I've learned along the way. And outside of work, I am mad about field hockey, and I really enjoy upskilling old furniture and repurposing it. So let's get started. My first lesson about startup product management. Be very clear, be crystal clear about the problem you're solving. Why is this problem important? I mean, we'll go through each one of these considerations, but these considerations will help you become very, very crystal clear and laser focused on the problem that you're solving. And these considerations will also help you set your North Star. Now, it's good to go through, well, it's not good, it's important to go through this at the start of at the start of your product journey, but it's also worth revisiting this every time you're making a decision about the product's direction. So let's go through these. What problem is your product addressing? For me, be very, very specific in that. What problem are you addressing? What problem are you trying to fix that your product will fix? Be very specific. Is it time? Is it direct costs? Is it process inefficiencies or people well-being or brand and marketing or something else? But you have to be very clear about it and you have to be passionate about it. Again, it may not be a problem, it may be an opportunity, but it's still worth specifying what gap your product will fill. It's also important, I find it important to be clear on who it's for, who is the product fixing the problem for. It's not enough for me to say it's a B2B or a B2C, so it's a business product or a consumer product, but also industries and people. For example, who would be the top 2 companies who would buy my product and whose job will change as a result of using my product? So for example, if the product is field services market, be specific on which problem it addresses. Failed delivery costs, lost part costs, on-site inventory costs, technician efficiencies, or failed SLAs and penalties as a result of that. And for which user? So for example, is it for the technician? Is it for the driver? Is it for the inventory manager or a tech team lead or a back office staff? Or is it for everybody? In which case, whose needs are most important? Then the second consideration is, why is this problem worth fixing? What the current problem results in or manifests in, and what's the bigger cost to the customer? So in the field service example, as a result of this failed delivery, or as a result of failed delivery, if that's a problem you're fixing and lost parts, the customer has to endure. So why is this problem worth fixing? Because in that instance, the customer has to endure repeated delivery costs, delayed and urgent repairs, technician inefficiencies. And as a result, they incur penalties and fines. And what they end up doing is to mitigate all of this, they store excess inventory on site. So having gone through this thought process, what you get to is the underlying problem, which is a cost of excess inventory at key locations. And why is this problem worth fixing? Because our product would reduce that substantially. And that's why it's a problem worth fixing. Why existing solutions are not adequate. If the customer, so the third consideration is why a current solution not working or inadequate. If the customer is spending money on hiring additional people or staff training or process simplification, would that yield the benefits our product offers? And if not, why not? So it may be that training won't fix it because staff turnaround is too high, or hiring more staff may increase, or if that's not the issue, hiring more staff may increase other HR-related indirect costs. Process simplification may just pass the issue downstream. So it's worth thinking why the current solutions are not fit for purpose. Then the other consideration is, why is your product different? So I get this is the problem, but can I not fix this problem in a different way? So again, in my example about field services, failed delivery costs, it's an issue because, and it's a problem worth fixing because you end up incurring huge amount of multi-million pounds of inventory stored at sites. But can I not address that by having one person sitting at a fixed location every day, and they would be the person to receive deliveries and give the parts to the technician? Why can't I do that? And why should I buy your product? Again, thinking this through, you'd be prepared with an answer. And in this instance, the answer for our product is that it offers 24/7 availability. So it's not just office hours or extended hours. It's round the clock. It's consistent user experience. It's no need for weather protection or a shelter. They don't need to be sitting indoors. And it offers convenience and flexibility in pickup time. So more importantly, the technician can pick up items as and when they need, and they can work around their daily schedule. Why would I pay for this? How would it pay for itself? And this is where two things happen. This is where you monetize the size of the problem and the cost of your product. So I appreciate monetizing the problem is hard. It requires deep research and rigor, but it's worth doing, especially as later on all this research and rigor will help your customer with their own cost-benefit analysis and their business case. As for the cost of your product, consider different pricing models. So are you offering one price or you're offering more gradient price so you can take the user on this journey with you from entry to enterprise? Are you offering, what is your total cost? And look at your total cost holistically. So things like direct costs, which is soft development cost, manufacturing, support. If there is a hardware component to it, then hardware maintenance. Also think about indirect or hidden costs. So licenses for the products that you're using and tools, legal, security, regulatory, and compliance. I find it's also worth thinking about at this stage about the investment you're expecting from your customer. So would they need, on top of using your product and paying for your product, would they have to buy any other hardware? Is there other costs on their part apart from training their users? So for example, if you're offering a mobile app related product, would they have to go and buy new mobile phones because you only offer it on a certain platform, on a certain environments? And would they have to buy tablets or any kind of hardware they'd have to purchase? It's worth thinking about that. So again, to summarize, be very, very crystal clear about the problem that you're fixing. The second lesson learned for me is start with a pilot, run a pilot as soon as you can, as early as you can. There's nothing like putting your product out there under pressure to learn from real people and situations. It really helps surface hidden requirements, and it challenges some of your obvious assumptions that you've made. For example, and also if the product is aimed at international market, it goes without saying that your pilot should really cover different geographic regions, time zones, languages, cultures. You may get, in our experience we did, you may get fatigue from repeating, this is a pilot, please bear with us. That's a risk you have to take. Try not to take it personally and be defensive. in the long run, it would really make it easier to engage prospective customers, to mitigate, to migrate to paid customers, and also help find new use cases and unearth new requirements. I'll just share an example with you from a global pilot that we ran for one of my products. We ran that pilot for 8 months, covering around 21 countries globally. And we learned a lot from that pilot, which we wouldn't have learned if we would have gone straight into launching our product and marketing our product straight away. What we learned from it, it was a mobile app-based product. And what we really learned from it, some of the highlights were developing for Android is very different to developing for iOS, especially as the implementation by manufacturers, mobile phone manufacturers, is different for different Android versions. We also learned that getting good quality translations is tough, especially in the local dialect and tone. We learned not to make assumptions on languages, especially the non-European languages going from right to left, and also around languages from top, which are read normally from top to bottom, like Japanese. We learned that people don't always like multiple navigation paths, especially if this is a work-related product. People don't like too many choices. That's what we found in that app. And what they want is simple, intuitive, log in, get the job done, log out, and not lingering around. And in some countries, which was quite an important lesson for us, that in some countries there is no such thing as pilot. The expectations are very high, and they expect the product to work perfectly or near perfectly from day one, even if you said it's a pilot. So these are just some of the things to bear in mind that we learned. The third lesson I've learned, which is important to me, is understanding the big picture. Not just looking at user experience of the product and a few interactions before and after, but instead, what's the very first interaction between the customer and their users, their employers, and their employees, or their consumers, or their end users, and where it all ends. And the goal here is to understand everything from start to finish in good enough detail. This immensely helps when you're making day-to-day decisions on the product features, apart from really getting under the skin and understanding your users and their motivations and their pain points. So I'll just share a couple of examples where this became quite important, just to illustrate the importance of this. With one of my products, there was a temptation. It was a mobile app again, and there was a temptation to make our mobile app all singing, all dancing, really feature-rich and jazzy from a UI perspective. But by understanding the big picture and understanding the whole journey and the whole service that our customer is offering, we learned that the user using this product is already using multiple tools in a day, multiple other applications and products in a day, which means too many logins, too many user interfaces, and too many instructions to remember. And they see our product as yet another tool they have to use. And instead of having a very feature-rich, all singing, all dancing, what was really needed was an intuitive app with fewer simple steps and as invisible in a user journey or in a user end-to-end process as possible. And that's quite different to what we were originally thinking. And we only learned that by understanding the big picture. In another example, or in another product, we designed a very slick order fulfillment process for parts to be picked from the local depot and then automatically restocked from Europe. Again, however, upon understanding the whole picture, we realized that although our product is about picking that part from the warehouse, the order only gets to the warehouse depending on the choices that the order, the operator is making when they're placing that order. And we learned that it's easier, fewer steps, and simpler for the operator to place the order on EU, on Europe than it is for them to place it on the local depot, because they have to look for where the part is available geographically closer to the repair site. And because it was easier for them to place it on Europe, because it wasn't one of their performance indicators, and it then meant they can close the call quickly and pick up the next call, which makes them look very efficient, they were placing all the orders on Europe, and the orders weren't being placed on the local depot, so our product could be used. Again, knowing that made a huge difference to us in redesigning our product, but also helping our customer get the most out of our product. So it's really crucial to understand the big picture. The fourth lesson learned for me is stabilize the product before overreaching. Don't let the early success blind you into overreaching and offering half-baked, half-cooked product with promises of fixes to come. Listen to your first paying customer, especially if they have invested earlier on in your science project, hoping for a wider rollout once you have a stable product. Don't annoy them. They are your ally, and they are invested in you. They believe in your product. They're invested in this with you. So stabilize and prioritize stabilizing your product over venturing into new markets, into new problems, or into complementary problems, and pivoting too soon. You will end up spreading your product team too thinly over multiple work streams, and you won't be able to do justice to all of the different problems you're trying to fix. And when I say fix primary problem, it's whatever the primary is in the context of your customer and your product, obviously including the learning from your pilot. The other important thing for me is saying no, and be prepared to say no. Once the customer sees the product enhancements and they see the speed of your turning around your features, they are bound to throw in new ideas and improvements at you. Be prepared to say no, especially if it goes against the grain of your product philosophy. And in there, it's also worth, around saying no, it's also worth remembering who the paying customer is and prioritize their needs and their users' needs. So for example, excuse me. For example, for one of my products, it was a retail delivery solution where the customer for the product, the company paying for our product is a retailer. So we prioritize the buyer's experience, the buyer's user experience, and the buyer's pains over the delivery driver's pains. And it was for a number of reasons. The driver is a contractor. They are paid for, they're paid by, or their time, their services are paid by the retailer. And their issues could probably be addressed by some workaround, appreciating that workaround may be painful, but in the short term, their issues could be addressed by some workaround. And our customer, we knew our customer has influence over the delivery company. On the other hand, the buyer is paying for our product indirectly by generating revenue for the retailer. Therefore, their pains are extremely important and directly affect the success of our product. To be clear, I'm not advocating not to pivot early in the product development. In some cases, it's essential for the survival of your product. What I'm saying that you must understand, or you must invest the time to understand why the current offering is not stable, why there are challenges with you stabilizing it, and why maybe fixing it won't yield the results you're looking for before you jump ships and pivot too early or go into solving complementary problems too early, and make it a conscious decision. The fifth lesson for me is don't generalize too early. And what I mean by it, don't try to be everything to everyone and tackle every problem too soon. Remember your core value proposition. And a case study comes to mind that in New York, when I was reading about Uber, in New York, the retailers found a unique way of using Uber drivers, and which was to deliver designer bags to their buyers' home. So instead of having delivery services, they were using Uber to send designer handbags to their buyers. Now, this was a unique use which the retailers found. So they found a different use for Uber taxi service, but Uber didn't jump on it and pivoted their product too soon. They stuck to their core taxi service value proposition and offering and perfected that before moving into Uber Eats or in other areas. Also think about, this ties in with the consideration we had in our first lesson learned, which is, why is this a problem worth fixing? Why existing solutions are not adequate? And more importantly, how would the customer pay for this? If you generalize too early, are you going into positions where the benefits don't outweigh the investment or the cost of your product? So for example, one of the products I've worked with in the past, when we struggled to get our third, fourth, and fifth customer, there was a temptation to make our B2B product B2C and offer it in the consumer market. But when we went through the rigor of the lessons and the considerations in the first lesson learned, who our customer is, why would they pay for this product, which problem we're trying to solve, we realized that the pain of a consumer wanting a parcel is not high enough for the retailer to pay additional delivery related cost. So it's high enough when it's in the industry, because a failed delivery and a failed or a lost part results in SLA penalties. Therefore, a business customer would pay for it, but the pain isn't high enough for a retailer to pay for, or a consumer to pay for. It may have changed now with the COVID, but at the time we were looking, that's what we learned. And so that prevented us from pivoting in a different area and spreading ourselves too thin and realizing that lesson way down when we've already invested. For me, the test of pivoting and extending into complementary markets or fixing complementary problems is when you feel like you're gold plating your product and your features. So in summary, be crystal clear on what problem you're fixing. Why is that problem worth fixing? For whom are you fixing it? And the benefits of your product versus the cost you're expecting the customer to pay. Early pilot, or pilot as early as you can and learn by being on the ground. Stabilize your product before you pivot into other areas, and resist the temptation to be everything to everyone. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, enjoyed the conversation. If you have and you want to continue the conversation, please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn. Thank you.